All right. Hey, everyone. That's the longest I've ever let my song go. I think it was about to run out. Want to welcome you to the Bishop's interview. Oh, I'm super excited about tonight. I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit nervous, but I got some good people up in the chat already. Everyone's chit-chatting, so thanks for being here. Peter mentioned that there's a moral dilemma with the newscast at the same time. I'm sorry about that, Peter. This was the way that it worked out for our time tonight, but thanks for being with us. Let me go ahead. Someone asked about flooding, and I was actually going to talk to our guest about this. So let me go ahead and introduce my best friend and a current bishop. Some of you have seen him before. We're going to have a fun night. I don't have a lot of things planned necessarily, so we're just going to see where this will lead. However, let me just say right from the get-go that if you've came here to watch, a big Bible bash or a big, like gonna watch Nathan, take him down. You probably ought to go somewhere else. That's not going to happen tonight, but we are going to have a good conversation, and so want to welcome you all here, and let me welcome my good friend. We'll call him the real bishop. Hello, real bishop.
How are you doing?
Oh man, I'm doing great. So real quick, are we using your name tonight, or shall I call you Real Bishop?
Well, whatever.
Okay.
You,
So,
a lot of people on here know me already.
all
So
right. So this is Craig. I'll call him Craig because I'm sure I'll call you that throughout the night. But want to welcome you now. I'm just going to say right from the get-go, Craig. I see some sisal and some chair rail behind you. What the heck's going on here?
well, since this is supposed to be the real bishop's interview, I thought we'd do it here in the bishop's office.
Oh my gosh. You're giving me PTSD, bro.
Except you're supposed to be on this side, right? Well, I don't know who's interviewing who here.
Well, I don't know. You're the real bishop.
Well, this is the bishop's interview, right?
Oh my gosh. Well, Peter says he loves my accent. Where's your accent, old buddy?
Oh, my accent's still here, old buddy. Tell you what. Golly.
All right. So before we get going too much, let me tell everyone that the real Bishop Craig here, he was in my band as a drummer. Not only was he a drummer, he was actually a musician too. He was a he was a fiddle player, among other instruments. That's right. Amy's got my back. Once a bishop, always a bishop.
There you go.
Mike says, "Will the real bishop please stand up?" So not only did we play music together, we were in a bishopric together as first and second counselors. That was a hoot.
Yeah.
And then when I was bishop, he was my first counselor. And other than that, I'm going to go through some slides. We've done some other things, but we have a long history together. I'm not sure what this movie is, Peter, but I'm glad I remind you of that movie. But one thing real quick, real Bishop Craig, one of our things we used to love to do anytime we had a bishopric meeting or some dragged out, long day or something, we would bring what we call a chocolate delight. And that was just simply chocolate ice cream with milk on top. And so I wanted to share that with you tonight, a chocolate delight. I know you're in Florida, but
The magic of the internet.
Yeah, take.
Let me grab that from you. All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Let's see it. What you
Well,
got there?
all right.
All right. So we've got our chocolate delights. This is just like old times.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
this is the only way we would get through Many meetings, right? Real Bishop Craig.
Well, long car rides down to stake conference, stake meetings. Nathan would always have a chocolate delight ready, so that made the drive bearable.
Yeah. All right. So I've already seen one comment. Janine says bishops don't have to be clean shaven. Let's just go ahead and get that out of the way, Craig. First of all, I think a lot of people are going to say, no, ain't no way. He ain't no bishop. He's got long hair. He's got facial hair. Why don't you go ahead and address that for everyone?
Well, I like to stick to the handbook. So, well, when it's convenient, right? When it's convenient for my needs or for other people. So in there, it nowhere says that you can't have a beard, can't have a goatee, can't have longer hair. It just says hair should be neatly trimmed and clean shaven. And if you notice on the sides here, I'm pretty clean shaven there. This is a nice shape, so I think it fits the criteria.
So has
And I haven't been asked to cut my hair or shave yet. So
okay. Do you anticipate that you might be asked to cut your hair or something or shave?
well, I think I made it pretty clear to the stake president that he doesn't have many other options in this ward, so he better tread lightly.
That sounds like how it was when I was called. I think they were scraping the bottom of the barrel. So,
well, that's what I always think. People say, "Well, they let you do that." I say, "Well, they take what they can get, right?" So I think that's a sentiment that a lot of bishops feel when they're called is like, couldn't you find somebody better? And
so
maybe it's the sentiment of a lot of the ward members too. I don't know.
I'm going to push back on that a little bit. I do know that you've always had longer hair. I don't think you've always had facial hair, but anyway.
I couldn't grow it until a few years ago when I was old enough.
Something down in that Florida water kicked in?
Yeah, for sure.
So Ginger asked, where are you located in Florida? The real Bishop Craig is down about as far south as you can go. How's that?
Yeah. Yeah, we call it northern Cuba.
Okay. Northern Cuba.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, first of all, Janine says, good for you. Just another misconception. I think when this night's over, you're going to see that unlike myself, Craig has always been good at separating, just what might be what's the word I'm looking for? Like not a custom, but a tradition or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, my sister's up in here. I love it.
Hello,
Craig
Lindsay.
has always been good for separating things that are just traditions. And I remember him bringing that up in our bishopric a lot. Does this really matter? Does that really matter? Matter of fact, your favorite thing to say that I remember was, if I remember right, it was 17.2. Is that right?
17.2.2. That was in the old handbook. Yeah.
And why don't you tell everyone what 17.2.2 in the old handbook reference?
So that section, talked about all the different things and the organization of the ward and classes and meetings and everything. And then 17.2.2 said, all these things may necessitate adjustment due to local needs. So I kind of always took that as every ward's going to be different. Nobody's going to have every single meeting they're supposed to have every month, every week, but you need to cater it to the people around you and the people in your ward.
And that's what I remember you were always so good at, because I had the tendency, if it said it, we did it. or at least we were supposed to do it. And if we didn't do it, then I felt bad for not doing it. Right. So, the more I think about myself, I feel like maybe I might be somewhere. There's there's religious OCD, which has a name. It's scrupulosity or something like that. But anyways,
I don't even know that word.
there's so I think as I hear more interviews and people explaining what it is, I feel like maybe I had a bit of that, and I think maybe my daughter did as well. She was the perfect human being, but always felt like she was never good enough at church, and that was one of her things. So, okay, so let me go ahead. We're 13 minutes in. We've got our chocolate delights, which we invented, and it's nothing more than cheap chocolate ice cream and milk. But it kind of crusts over. It's really quite great.
It
My wife
crystallizes nicely.
Right, it crystallizes. My wife doesn't like this kind of thing. She's like, "No, I just want it all like smooth, like a milkshake."
No, it doesn't make
different.
for good chocolate delight.
Yeah, but let me go ahead and say, I know most of our viewers, and we have 35 on now. We'll probably have more later, and I imagine there'll be 1,000 people that watch this video at some point. Let me just say from the get-go, I would give up my YouTube page and everything rather than offend my best friend. So I'm not going to try to do that tonight. At the same time, I want to be real and authentic to me and to my channel. So I want to just say, I want the comments to be respectful. And I just want to thank Craig for coming on here tonight and wasting his night over in the bishop's office as the real bishop, current bishop, doing a bishop's interview with me, who calls himself. Okay, so I just want to thank you, well, Craig.
We can call this our family home evening.
Okay. Yeah, speaking of that, what are you doing at church? You're not supposed to be there on a Monday night. 17.2?
17.2.2. Correct.
All right. Peter's asking about attendance in your area and stuff. Do you want to talk to that at all? Is it?
Sure. So up until about a year and a half ago, we had a combined ward that was English and Spanish. So 1 week we would do everything in English, 1 week we'd do everything in Spanish. And for the people that only spoke English, it was pretty difficult. And for the people that wanted to learn Spanish, it was great. I loved it. And we had, there was a lot more people at church and a lot more people that I saw every week and was friends with. And then our ward split when they rearranged some of the stake boundaries and stuff. And so now we're just an English ward. And then there's also a Spanish ward. So we have about half the amount of members that we did before. But I really like that bilingual aspect. I think that's something that it was helpful to me, at least. And I know it was for some other people that voiced their opinions about the split. But
so
yeah.
Every ward that I have been familiar with has between 80 and 150 active, and 500 to 600 on the rolls. Is that sort of what your ward does?
We're about 300 on the rolls, and about 130 active.
Okay.
So almost half, about 45%.
And you've been bishop for, is it almost a year now?
It'll be a year in May, so like 9 months, 10 months.
Here's my brother-in-law. Will y'all be doing a musical number during this podcast? We've done a lot of musical numbers, so let me go through just a couple slides. I don't want to spend all of our time reminiscing about days gone by, but let's go through a few. Is this what you looked like when you was called? Craig?
N- no. So the picture on the left was just before I decided I was getting a haircut about 2 years ago, and
Okay.
I didn't tell anybody, didn't tell my wife, and I shaved everything off, cut my hair. It had nothing to do with my calling or anything because I wasn't a bishop then or wasn't
Okay.
planning on it. And I showed up on my wife's work, and she about had a heart attack.
I
But but if she would have, it would have been okay because she works at a hospital. So
bet. Okay, let me go through here. So Craig used to have an addiction to EL fudge.
still
Then he
do.
traded it. Then he traded it for Monster drinks. Now I find out 2 weeks ago, after he got me hooked on Monsters, that he's quit them. Are you still caffeine free?
I I am. It's been 2 weeks of HE double hockey sticks.
All right. Well, good for you. Let's see what
Uh,
else we have. This guy does it all. Okay. This is this Tetons?
that's Mount Whitney in California.
Okay. This looks dangerous.
That's a Machu Picchu in Peru.
Okay. What about this?
That is the Tetons.
Okay. I've seen a picture of this guy like sleeping on the side of a cliff before. So I mean, he does it all. Craig and I opened a music venue. This was our climbing wall. It stayed open for about 6 months before he
Yeah.
moved away. Long story there, but this was our climbing wall. Craig says this is his favorite picture of us two together. I don't know what we're doing or where we were, but
That was at a Lindsay might recognize that. That was at a photo barn party or something we played at back in like 2012 maybe.
okay. Let's see what else we have here. This was back when we used to play rock band with our kids. You remember that?
Yep.
This was when I took some pictures of Craig and his new mandolin. You still got that thing?
Still do. Yep.
All right. This was when Craig was drummer. This is a Hinckley Brothers band. I'm over here playing bass. Craig's on the drum set back there. There he is. This was us traveling around to some gig, another gig. This was me in my RV. Craig sent me this picture. You got that blown up on your wall or something, buddy?
I sleep with it above my bed. Of
Okay.
course.
Craig sent me this picture. This was me showing up to church as bishop in on my motorcycle. And it looks like maybe a rainy day. So instead of not driving the motorcycle, I just put on some. I have a suit on under that, I promise.
Truth.
This is Craig and me out on the lake doing some wakeboarding. And that gets us to this story here, Craig. Why don't you tell everyone about these couple slides here? This was something I wanted to spend a little bit of time on. I think people will appreciate this.
All right. So this was when my wife and I and some friends went to Chad in Africa. My wife is a surgeon, and we were going to help out at the medical clinic there, which was out in the middle of nowhere. And basically, it's the only place where people around there would gather. When people come to the hospital, so like if you came to the hospital, your whole family would come, and everybody just camps out there. So that first picture, you saw a bunch of motorcycles and stuff, and people sleeping on the ground. So the whole family just camps out there, and they just make fires and make food and everything. But that was I love that experience. My wife, not so much. Basically because of the just the conditions that they had to operate in was very less than ideal. They didn't have the right equipment. They didn't have the right things. My favorite story of hers was I saw her come out of the the OR, the operating room once, and she was just sweating. I'm like, what was going on in there? She's like, well, I had to saw a guy's arm off, but the saw was too dull.
Oh my
I'm like, oh
gosh.
my gosh. So I think some of those kind of experiences traumatized her. But I was stuck just doing a bunch of the maintenance stuff. I helped fix a few of the medical equipment machines, set up some security cameras, stuff like that. Just whatever they needed done. So it was an awesome experience.
And so, was this something that you sort of organized yourself, or were you part of another group?
So that is run by the Seventh Day Adventist Church. So we got in contact with them, and they kind of set everything up. They have people that are there for several months at a time. So and then they have people like us that come in for like 2 weeks and then leave. But there's still people there, still working, and I'm ready to go back. So if anybody wants to come with me, come on.
So, when I heard, what year did you guys do that?
That was January of 23.
Okay. Because when I was hearing about it, I was just, I'm trying to get the years right, but essentially I was in the deepest, darkest deconstruction faith
Hmm.
crisis situation.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling like how awesome that was that you guys went, and how awesome it was that it was something that the Seventh day Adventist Church tries to do, and how I was thinking to myself, well, I've never heard of our church doing anything like that. And so I remember talking with you and your wife about this experience, and um, I don't know. I wasn't willing to tell you guys where we were at yet. So to paint the picture,
Hmm.
um, we we had just our whole world blow up. I go to my mom's house. I'm like, Mom, I got to tell you something. And you know, we talk to her and we tell her basically that we have some problems with church. And then we're like, and then we were planning to leave the next day to go to your house, Craig. And then
Yep.
when we got there, like this was super early on. When we got there, the missionaries were there for dinner. You remember that?
I don't remember that.
Yeah, I do. I do
Okay.
because my wife and I were like, oh, you know, and I remember telling her, I am so Mormon, like just talking to the guys and I was just like, I am so like, and I just that's what I remember from that, is telling them and telling myself like, I can't not be Mormon. I am so
Hmm.
Mormon. And we kind of took that at the time almost like a sign, like, are we doing the right thing? Are we doing? Because we show up, it was like, hey, Craig is like, oh, and then as soon as we said hello, here come the missionaries for dinner. So
That was
anyway,
not planned at
no,
all.
no, and I know,
So,
and you guys, I don't think had any. You guys
uh,
didn't know anything about it, but the reason why I bring that up is I did kind of, I did kind of scratch the surface, and I was like, you know, I was kind of um, venting to you guys that, well, how come our church doesn't do stuff like this? You know, like I think that if I wanted to pay my tithing to go support something like this, that ought to be, that ought to
yeah.
count.
Hmm.
And I think I remember you kind of agreeing with me, but I do definitely remember your wife shooting it down. She's like, nope, 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 no, you got to pay your tithing to the church, something like that. Which I would have said as bishop, you know, if someone would have said, okay, actually, that was one of the questions I had for you, and I'll go ahead and ask you now.
Okay.
If someone came into your bishop's office and said, Bishop, real Bishop Craig, I want to pay my tithing to the charity of my choice. I want to pay it to the Seventh Day Adventists because I really like what they do. I want to pay it to what's his name that I just helped out down the street the other day. I think I showed you a video of him before, but
Hmm.
Anyway, I do pay my tithing, but I want to do it in my own way. Would you, as someone who's a 17.2 guy, would you sign the recommend? And I will tell you that I would not have. I would say,
Hmm.
sorry, brother, but we have rules, we have, would
Right.
you sign the recommend?
Not strictly based on that, but I probably would, based on other factors. If everything else checked out, then I mean, I don't have a problem with it personally. I mean, when they go get a steak recommend, they're going to ask them the same thing, and that might be a different answer. But um, yeah, that's a
Have you ever
that's a tricky question.
have you ever had the steak? Because I'll tell you, for me, they told me we will always support the bishop on whatever decision he makes. Now,
Hmm.
we might give you counsel for a future decision, but we will always support you. Is that what your stake, or have you ever had any sort of situation where they've kind of balked at something you've decided?
I haven't had anything yet. In fact, there was one there was one member who wanted to get a recommend, and he said he didn't feel like he could get a recommend because he was, well, and this is probably a whole nother ball of wax you're gonna get into, because he drank coffee. And I pretty much said to him, well, and this was back when I used to drink 4 monsters a day. And I said, well, I drink tons of caffeine too. Mine's just right here. And I pulled up my monster that I had sitting on my desk in the bishop's office. And the stake president had asked about that, and he said, well, if that's his only hang up, give him a recommend, and let's get him on the way. So I was like, okay, well, all right, that makes two of us.
So I think most of the people that are watching this right now know that for me, I love that and I hate it. On one hand, I love it. It's forward thinking and it's nuanced. On the other hand, we believe in a prophet. The prophet has said it. If they don't want us to live by it, then why don't they change it? So I'm constantly stuck in this space
Hmm.
of wanting to see the church improve. And we could talk about this for an hour of things that the church is doing to improve. And then on the other side of the coin, it's like, well, then why was it this way? Aren't we led by prophets? Aren't they
Hmm.
supposed to be inspired? It's like a constant battle. And
Yeah,
that battle is what put me in the friggin' hospital, and
yeah,
and I'll
yeah.
admit, I used to be black and white.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, let me put it this way. So, for those people on here that are familiar with temple recommend questions, one of the questions is, are you a full tithe payer? Right? And the person can either say yes or no. And I I have no idea, whether the $8 they paid tithing last month is all the money they made, or if they actually made $8,000 last month. I don't know, and I don't really care, either. But that's one of those questions. It's like, sure, they can lie about it and still get a temple recommend. Why not? Right?
yeah.
So I mean, and then the other thing is the the word of wisdom question. You ask people about that, they can lie about that too. So, those kind of things, I don't to me, don't necessarily quote disqualify somebody. But somebody says, well, I've been out murdering people, and I've been out stealing, and I've got a gambling problem, and I've got these other addictions, and that might be an issue. So
Okay.
yeah, but
But
but when it comes down to the people answering the questions themselves, um, I mean, I take that at whatever they say. I'm not I'm not a palm reader. I'm not a fortune teller. You know, if somebody says, "Yes, I'm a full tithe payer," I'm not like, I'm not saying, "No, you're not," because I know how much money you make and you didn't do. You know, it's like because that to me is irrelevant.
Well, I understand what you're saying. However, I guess the problem I have is, so what if they're just honest and they say, I'm going to be honest with you. I do drink tea, or, I do have a glass of wine with my wife every now and then. We feel like it lets us relax and we have a better sex life that night. Okay. If someone tells you that, because that's basically my wife's story, even though she hates wine, she hates wine. But if we were to tell you that, I keep going, would you sign the recommend? And I don't want to keep asking you that, but you see, so on one hand, it's like, well, just don't tell him, but we can't encourage people to not be honest,
Right,
right?
right. Well, and going back to one of your episodes, I don't know when it was, a few weeks ago, you said that you tend to believe people, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And it might be a flaw of yours
yeah,
that you trust what people say, right?
yeah.
And I'm probably the same way. You know, if somebody says, "No, I don't drink," or "Yes, I pay my tithing," like, okay, sure.
Okay. Before we get too far away from this, I did have this pulled up. I wanted to go ahead and share it. It's this video you sent. Do you want to set this up first?
All right. Well, so those who are familiar with our church know that the songs, especially in sacrament meeting, can be really boring, right? Except when Nathan and I were playing, or when there was nothing else going on that Sunday and we needed to fill 5 minutes or so. Um, but this video here was when we were in Chad, and we walked several miles to out in the middle of nowhere to go to this Seventh Day Adventist church, um, under this tree with um, all these kids and few adults that lived around there. And I this was the greatest church meeting I'd ever been to. It was fun. It was spiritual. It was engaging. It was it checked a lot of the boxes for me. So you can go ahead and play the video. It's only about 15 seconds long, but you'll get the idea of this church service. All right. I mean, those kids were so excited, to be there, and a lot of those people walked across the Chad Desert for several miles just to be there that Sunday morning. And I mean, you can see in the video, I was playing guitar, I was dancing around. I was like, this was a great church service.
I've got chill bumps. That's chill bumps. I've got chill bumps watching that and hearing those kids. It sounded like they were saying hallelujah, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Um, I guess I have to say that to know that our prophets in the past have told us that those people we just saw were less valiant in the pre-mortal life. Obviously, I'm not going to ask you if you agree with that. I know you don't. So obviously, you would, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you would agree that sometimes prophets say things that ain't right. I mean,
Of course.
right?
Yeah.
And I will admit that I've studied quite a bit in the past couple years on race stuff with the church, and you know, I understand that it was a different time and all these apologetic type things, but my black and white brain, keeps going back to, but they were supposed to be prophets. They're supposed to see around corners. They're supposed to, but all that aside, that clip is beautiful. Did you take, you didn't take the footage because you were in it, but it's beautiful. Would you say, were you just, were you being serious when you said it was one of the most spiritual or best church services you've ever been to?
Yeah.
What about compared to like the temple?
Well, the temple's not a church service.
Right.
I mean, there's definitely big differences there, but as far as church service, and I want to kind of compare our normal sacrament meeting service to maybe a lot of other churches. And I don't know if you've been to many other churches, but I've been to my fair share of churches. When we lived in the Washington D.C. area, I used to play drums in a Black Baptist Pentecostal church.
I love this
and
story.
That was the craziest that was the craziest time at church.
So I think I think you showed me a pay stub one time, and it was like, hey, I got paid from the Baptist church or something like that, right?
Yeah.
It was
And then
awesome.
when we first moved here to Florida, I started playing drums for this Baptist church. Like, every Sunday I would show up there at 8 a.m. We'd play the service, lasted about an hour and a half. It would be done at 9:30, and then our church started at 10 o'clock. So I think there's a lot of people that are in the church, don't ever have the opportunity, or maybe feel it's wrong to experience other churches, other religions, other ways of doing it. And I want to touch on the music in our church services, because as we're both musicians, that's something that resonates with us both. But there tends to be a lack of I don't know what the word is, a lack of vigor and enthusiasm when we do hymns in church, and a lot of that is due to just the nature of the hymn and the style of the song. Some of them are just, they just need to be gone from the hymn book. There's some that just don't belong in there. They don't, they say things that we think are weird now. There's a few songs that have some weird.
Adam on Diamond.
Yeah, and da 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 da. And they eat but a very little meat. Da-da-da. I don't remember.
We meet again as sisters.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of songs that can go.
Praise to the man.
Yeah, I mean, there's several that if we sing them, which I try not to now. Some of those, there's just a lack of interest, a lack of enthusiasm, anything. But I'm not saying we should go to the Pentecostal, or take it to the other extreme, because I think as Mormons, we're on the extreme boring side of church services, right? And I think it's been like that for as long as I can remember. And then there's other churches that are on the far end of it's just all fun and lights and smoke and mirrors and all this stuff. So I think there needs to be a kind of middle ground there that's gonna still provide the right spirit, but also be engaging to people. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Which it's kind of impossible to do that during sacrament meeting. And then we have other concerts during the year, like a Christmas concert or something. And then, um, the stake president says, "Oh, well, this is a Christmas concert. They had it on a Sunday night, stake center." And they said, "Well, since we're in the chapel, we can't clap because there's no clapping in the chapel." And about 10 seconds later, I had sent him a text with the screenshot in the handbook that says, "Clapping may be appropriate for other events such as concerts and this." So it
This
was
is
it was
why
kind of
this is
it was kind
this is why I like you so much, because you constant, and I hope the viewers can see this, that you constantly have been able to see through tradition and focus more on what truly matters. And I mean that.
yeah. I mean, and that is a big thing. A lot of people that I see that don't want to come back to church, or that step away from the church, a lot of times it's because of the traditions, or things like that. It's not as often about doctrinal stuff. It's more, I don't like the way we do this, or it's boring. You know that can turn people off real quick, especially people that are coming for the first time, and they
Yeah.
come sit in sacrament meeting. They're like, "I'm still sitting here an hour later, listening to somebody talk."
All right, real Bishop Craig, I'm going to switch gears for a second. Before I go to this comment, let me mention that I have been listening to some interviews about this Second Class Saints book, and I would just say it is absolutely
Hmm.
amazing to learn about the race relations and things of the church.
Hmm.
But let me go to Toby Strickland's comment, because this was something that I wanted to explore just a little bit.
Hmm.
And basically, what he's saying here, and I'm going to add to it just a little bit. Will you, real Bishop Craig, will you speak to, number one, if you've had any, I guess, like doctrinal questions, issues yourself personally, and then if your ward has, and also, coupled with that, are you aware of what's called the gospel topic essays, and is your ward aware of those?
Um, so yeah, I am aware of those and many other things that have that were out before the gospel topics essay. That was back in 2013. About, am I right?
15, maybe 15, but yes,
15.
somewhere right in
Okay.
there.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm aware of those, and I know, and I listen to things and read things on both sides. Um, yeah, I'm aware of all that. Um, as far as members of our ward, nobody has really come to me with any questions about that, or similar to that. But
Yeah.
and then what was your other question?
Well, the other question I was wondering, because I don't know the answer to this. Have you ever went through a period of time where you were struggling with any doctrinal type stuff related to truth claims of the church or anything like that?
For me, like I was saying before, it's never been any doctrinal stuff or any stuff from church history or anything like that. For me, it's always those um, the tradition things, the culture of the church that is, people perpetuate, and as people move around, everybody's like, well, in my last ward we did this, and we did this, and people try to try to bring those around, which some of them are good, but some of them aren't. For me, as far as the truth claims or questions, I really haven't had any that I haven't resolved. Most of them have been, culture, tradition things, or administration type things. Nothing
Right.
really doctrinal. I mean,
Okay.
the administration side of things drives me crazy sometimes.
What do
Which,
you mean by that?
oh, well, like we're going to have this meeting this day, and we need all these people there, and you need to call these people. We need these people there, and we're going to talk about this. Oh, and you need to call people to this and this. 17.2.2.
Okay. Okay. Let me bring up Kendall's comment here because this is interesting. I will not name the sister in our stake, but you know her, Mr. Craig. She is the loudest mouth of the stake. She's the loudest mouth of the stake, and she is the one that I was having a back and forth with online when I came out of the closet that I had problems with the church. And if I remember right, you texted me, Mr. Real Craig Bishop, and you said, dude, leave the keyboard warriors alone, man. Don't worry about them. Do you remember that? Or something like
I
that?
do.
So it was this particular
I
sister.
think I said something to the effect of, you guys both look like idiots, so just, just let it be.
Touche. But anyways, this particular sister, now you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
After we went back and forth sometime. Now, this is a very, very seasoned senior-esque sister of the stake. She private messaged me and she says, okay, look, where do you even find the gospel topic essays? Because I kept referring to them. I'm like, gospel topic essays. She's like, I don't even know where, like, help me find them. And so just to kind of highlight Kendall's comment that a lot of members. So the point about the gospel topic essays, in my opinion, this is what they do. They admit that Brigham Young gave in to the racist teachings of his day. In other words, Brigham Young was a racist. It's kind of, that's the short version. They admit to Joseph's polygamy, which the church, until these came out, that was not acknowledged. And they admit to the translation method of the Book of Mormon regarding the hat and the rock and this type of thing, among other things. But those are probably the three biggest things in there. And there's actually what's it called, footnotes of the gospel topic essays that take you to the Joseph Smith papers, and I've went through all those trails, and they're quite interesting. But anyways, that's kind of the point of those is it's the church, again, like we were talking before. On the one hand, the church improving, in my view, on being transparent and etc. On the other hand, it leaves us like, well, why was this not talked about? Why was it hidden? It's this constant battle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's switch gears just a little bit.
Well, but before you go on, I want to get a little bit closer to you. So I'm gonna come join you over there.
Uh-oh.
All right.
Okay. Oh, look at you. See, this is the thing. You used to say, you know what? I'm not as smart as people think I am. I'm just good at like Googling stuff. Something like that, right, Craig?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
You've always got the tricks and the tips. Like, how did you get that picture? Don't you need to take a picture with me not in the frame first?
Do I?
Oh,
no,
gosh.
I am. Well, I'm really there. You're not really there. I'm really there.
I'm glad you got rid of that nasty sisal on the
Oh,
friggin' wall.
that was just one of those virtual backgrounds.
Mike says, doesn't Nathan have his own? I do, Mike. I keep it. I keep it. All right. So, Craig, I have to ask this one question. And I had a game for us to play in a second. And oh my gosh. Don't tell me you have a seer stone, Bishop. All right. I have to ask you this question.
Okay.
And I want this, we're all about honesty here on the Bishop's interview. Do you believe, Bishop Craig, real Bishop Craig, that words physically appeared on Joseph's seer stone and he read them off and they wrote it down, and when they wrote it down correctly, new words appeared? Is that your belief?
As far as I believe, yeah. I mean, how they appeared, I don't know, or whether it was, physically appear, I don't know, or if it was Braille or something. I don't think so, or if it was, yeah, I'm not sure about that. In fact, this is one question. There's one question I have is, okay, so we know about the hat and the rock, and he would look in there and the words would appear. So then, what at that point was the purpose of the plates?
Right. That
Right?
that's kind of the whole Exmo angle on it. It's like, why did we even need the plates? Moroni carrying these things around, and
Yeah. Well, I have a good answer to that, but I don't want to go into it here.
well, you're welcome to go into anything you'd like. I don't have an outline, but is there something about that you want to say?
No.
Okay, you want to answer Janine real quick?
Is Bishop Greg Craig a convert? Not no. I grew up in the church. Was baptized when I was 8. I was baptized 2 days after my 8th birthday. Same day as my this girl I had a crush on in the ward. We got baptized same day. I was like, all right. Yeah, no, I've been in the church all my life.
Okay. Also, I meant to say this at the start. I showed you a picture of me and my 2 brothers on stage, and Craig was part of our band. I used to like to tell this story that I would say, you know what? There's 4 degrees on this stage, four degrees. Like from college,
College degrees.
college degrees, and then the funny part was Craig had them all. Between me and my 2 brothers, we had zero, and I can't remember. Craig had all the degrees, so Craig's he's very, he's got his credentials. So, all right, let me switch gears just a little bit, Craig, and I know you're away from your family, so you can cut us short at any time.
Okay.
But I want to read. I want to read a message from my brother-in-law, and he might still be in the chat. This is from Todd, and I told Todd, I was like, dude, tonight, I'm going to be talking to Craig. And he's like, man, Craig, he says, he is what every Mormon should be. And I said, what do you mean by that? And I want to read to you what he said. And then I want to talk about this a little bit. This is what he said. It's been fascinating to watch Craig's reaction to Nathan and Amy's transition out of the church. From what I can tell, he hasn't skipped a beat in his love and respect for them. I've got chill bumps just reading that shit. Okay. I'm sure it wasn't easy for Craig to watch a friend who he had tons of history with, including serving as a counselor to Nathan when he was bishop, change his beliefs so drastically and very publicly. share his thoughts through social media, podcasts, etc. From what I can tell, Craig hasn't skipped a beat in his friendship with Nathan through it all. He hasn't unfollowed him on social. In fact, he'll sometimes pipe in with a witty comment. That's definitely true, the witty part. Craig now lives about 12 hours away and could have easily chosen to resent this new direction. He could have written Nate off, but never talked to him, just faded away. Instead, he placed the friendship first, regardless of a difference in beliefs about the church and Nate's decision to be very vocal about his new beliefs. Mad respect for Bishop Sobey. So, I feel like we could end right there, Bishop Craig, but I want to talk about this for a minute. And I don't intend to throw anybody under the bus or speak ill of anyone. Rather, I want to thank and praise you for the way you have treated me. Now, having said that, my parents have never said, "Hey, Nate, by the way, you did good with John DeLynn." I know that was stressful. It was a huge audience. I think there were 1,000 people live in the comments. I had very little time. Plus, my mic sounded like a freaking chipmunk. Okay, I was nervous, and you reached out and you said, "Good job. You did good, man." And I had not posted it on my own social media because I was too nervous to go there. And you said, "You know what I think?" I said, "What's that?" You said, "I think you need to post that." And I said, "Really?" And you said, "Yeah, because to me, you seemed a lot more human, a lot more real, and quite frankly, when I read what you write on Facebook, you come across a little more hateful or whatever. So I think it shows you in a better light. So with all that being said, I want to first say a huge thank you for putting a friendship before religion. And I guess ask you to respond to that and ask you, I feel like, of course, I follow a lot of pages online, Facebook pages and things. And I read every day, literally every day, almost every day, stories of people being ostracized, cut out of the family, never talked to. And so I'm not saying that that's happened to me, but I will say that I have not had anything near the response that I've had from you, which is, look, we may not agree on everything, but I still put our relationship above everything else. Can you respond to all of that?
Well, an easy response to that is, what are the first two commandments? Love God, love your neighbor, right? And it doesn't say love everything about the church. It doesn't say love going to hours of meetings of on Sunday and extra meetings. It says love God, love your neighbor. So, I mean, that's about the simplest I can put it.
Okay.
And I think it's sad that a lot of people feel that if someone is no longer in the church, that it is a slight against them. Like, since you're no longer in the church, I should feel offended, right?
Right.
That makes no sense at all, right? Like, you and I went kayaking several times. I'm not really into kayaking. Are you offended?
No.
No. Okay. So I mean, it's I think one of the best things I would say about the church is connecting people together. Because if it wasn't for the church, you and I would have never met. We never would have served in a bishopric together. We never would have played in a band together. So I think that's one of the the best things about the church as an organization is the bringing people together. There's other things about the church that are not so good when a bunch of people like-minded get together, but yeah, I would say I never felt once that you are attacking anything I believe. And I know a lot of people can say, well, real Bishop Craig, if you know about the gospel topics essays and all this stuff, and you still believe it, why are you so dumb? You know, people could say that, but I think there's a lot to be learned, when you dig into church history and you dig into a lot of those things that, there's some things that are, as you used to be, black and white, right?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things that are, well, we're not sure, or it could have been this way or it could have been that way. And then other things that are definitely black, not in the racist sense, but have a darker side. And there are things that are wonderful, things that are great.
Yeah.
So yeah, I never felt that I was being attacked, or that anything I believed was being attacked, or that anyone thought I was naive because I'd read the things and I know about them, yet I still believe, right? And I've got four or five degrees, so I'm smart,
Well, smart you are. There's no smart aleck maybe, but
So I
no.
have a couple questions for you.
All right, hold on. Let me respond to that real quick,
Okay.
and then we'll go to your questions. So a couple things I wanted to say. Let me get back in the mind. Oh my gosh, what was it? All this smart talk. Okay, yeah. So the one thing I would say is I was told by a family member, I won't name them, that because I said, I respect you, and he says, listen, the respect has to go both ways. In other words, you're talking about things I believe in, and so this particular family member does not see it the way that you just explained, which, okay. The other thing I would say is when I speak out about things related to the church, I'm not talking about this family member's church. I'm not talking about your church, or I'm talking about my church. Now, the way I was taught, and I realize that might be the same thing, but in my mind, in other words, I want to say I want to thank you for respecting me and putting our friendship first. At the same time, I'm being told that I'm not reciprocating that to some family members. And I guess I want to ask, do you kind of see it the way I'm seeing it, in that I'm not talking about their church. I'm talking about my church. Now, I know it's the same thing, but I'm talking about my beliefs and the way that I was taught and the way I was raised. I'm kicking back against that. If that happens to be the same as yours, that's a different story. Does that make any sense, or do you feel like this particular family member might have a point in that other people like you are being more loving and reasonable and accepting than people like me who have been speaking out about against things that they don't agree with? Any opinion on that?
I wouldn't say that I am. Rephrase the question.
Well, I think my sister does a good job. And this word differentiation, I think she got from Julie Hanks. And Julie Hanks basically, let me rephrase the question, and I'll talk about another person altogether.
Mm-hmm.
So my daughter, and sometimes she gets on to me like that's not the way my story went. Like I'll tell my own story, and I'll give that to her. One day she'll tell her own story. But from my perspective, there was a point that my daughter put her heart out on the lines, social media wise. She did something that she hadn't done before. And it was a real step, kind of like when I went on with John DeLynn. I'm like, this is a step. Like, I'm putting myself out there.
Mm-hmm.
And without naming a particular person in my family said I had problems that this person wouldn't show support for my daughter. Like, you don't have to like what she's saying in order to say, hey, Kaylee, you're strong, you're a beautiful person, we support you, we love you. You don't even have to talk about, well, we don't agree with what you're saying. No, that's a different
Right.
story. That's the differentiation that my sister's talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
To love someone and support someone without having to necessarily support their specific message. So
Yeah.
I was going to try to rephrase the question, but I didn't rephrase the question. But that's kind of the point that I was trying to get at. Okay, so you said you had a few questions. Let me tell you this. I will accept any questions. However, I will reserve myself at asking certain questions. I'm just going to say that. But for you, to me, I will answer any question that's on your mind. And I have some for you as well.
Okay. So, some people say as soon as somebody leaves the church, then they just abandon God and religion altogether. So has that happened for you?
Okay. That's a good question.
Or are you, is it, you still believe in a supreme being, still believe in God, but it's not the same way you were taught?
That's a very good question. And first, let me say, I tried to answer this question in a video that I titled, It's Not That Easy, Dad. I tried to answer that question. And so if anyone wants to refer to that, you can. To put it a bit more concisely, in Mormonism, in my opinion, we are taught that Mormonism is the cat's meow. That's where all the truth is. Brad Wilcox would say that other churches are just playing church because they don't have the truth. They don't have the priesthood. They don't have the additional scripture. They don't have all of these things that make it count. Therefore, they're playing church like kids play house or something. And so I would admit that a lifetime, 45 years of being told this type of thing, that there's like, when I had people tell me, dude, you're going to go to hell if you're not saved, I would laugh under my breath at that notion of going to hell and burning forever, because I knew that that was complete and total hogwash, because I knew what the revealed and restored gospel taught me. Now, having said that, I was also taught that the Jesus that I believed in, he kept the gospel from going to certain races. He was really interested in gaining a whole lot of money and not spending on things like what you did with like that hospital. It was left to other churches to do the hospital in Chad. So I was taught that the Jesus of Mormonism was very interested in certain things. And without trying to change your question into a big diatribe of a bunch of asshole things, let me just say, yes, as I have deconstructed some Mormonism things, I feel like I was left with a set of tools in a tool bag that I have used with some Bible stories. Do I believe that there was a global flood? No, I do not. Do I believe people lived in the belly of whales? No, I do not. Do I believe that donkeys can talk and talk? No, I do not. Do I believe that Lot's wife was turned into a pillar of salt? No, I do not. And so, having said all of that, I do believe that there is something. I don't believe it's just happenstance and Big Bang Theory and boom, and here we are. No, I don't believe that. But I would say, and the simplest way I would say it is when Mormonism went out the door, it reached back and grabbed as much Christianity as it could, and it took it with it. So where does that leave me?
Well,
I'm still trying to figure that out.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense because your whole foundation of Christianity was Mormonism, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so, I mean, and like I touched on earlier, I think a lot of people, and I don't know if this was you, but if you don't experience other churches, other religions, then all you know is Mormonism, right?
Right.
You don't know what the other churches believe, what the other churches teach, because really when you get into it, a lot of the Christian churches have those core doctrines, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of times, in Mormonism, those core doctrines get attached to these other cultural or traditional things that are not core doctrine,
Yeah.
So I
I think to further my answer on that, we've just had a bunch of flooding, huge flooding in here locally in Middlesboro, your town where you lived. I don't know if
Yep.
have you seen that in the news and everything?
Yeah.
Not a year ago or whatever it is, Asheville and surrounding areas flooded like crazy. And the thing that I have written that has gotten the most shares and likes and traction like that has been something that I called I'm so thankful God kept me safe, something like that. And it was basically saying, after these tragic events, and of course we had, the fires in California. I mean, there's always some tragic event, whether it's in your personal family of cancer or, whatever. And then we would say, I'm so thankful God kept me safe. And I just, now when I hear that, I cringe to the bone because it's like, trying to put yourself in the shoes of the family that lost. Uh, you went. You're not. You went.
I can still hear you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's that church internet you're on over there. What I was trying to say is when people start, I'm so glad God kept me safe from this and that, and then you put yourself in the shoes of someone that lost a loved one or lost a baby or burned up in the fire or drowned, it's like, well, why didn't he keep them safe? And there's a logical fallacy to that line of thinking. And then you start to see, okay, well, this is just what humans say. It's just like a something that makes us feel good. And as and I'm not trying to say this in a way that I'm smarter or anything like that, but for me, when you take these things out to their logical conclusions, then you realize, oh, well, it doesn't really, God doesn't work that way. The whole finding your keys, or I need everyone to pray for me so that this or that can happen. It's like, I don't believe that. In other words, I don't believe that God is sitting waiting for the X amount of prayers to come through so that somebody gets blessed or somebody doesn't get blessed. If God exists, I don't believe he gets involved in that type of thing. In other words, if God exists, he set up the parameters for the world to exist, and we just exist. That's my belief. Now, which is quite a bit different than what it was in Mormonism. Did I answer your question?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. We've been going for an hour and 18 minutes. Are you still okay on time?
Yeah, I got a few more minutes.
Okay. Well,
It's getting hot in here because the air conditioning went off because it thinks there's nobody here anymore.
Okay, so I have a hat here. Now, I was telling some people, my wife and some people, like, this is not going to be a gotcha question interview. Like, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
interested in debating and trying to get, you on something. So I have in my hat questions on a cue card. Remember when we used to do this with the youth? We'd have them all write their questions and we'd answer them as the bishopric. So some of them are questions and some of them are jokes. So I'm going to leave it up into God Almighty to answer. And I've actually already asked you a few of these. So let's just take a couple of them randomly. Is that okay?
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Here's the first one. I am a loser for asking my best friend gotcha questions. Okay, that's what that one said. All right, let's go to the next one. All right, this is random. Do you know many stories about Joseph's polygamous wives?
Yeah.
Like by names and like the circumstances surrounding their marriages. The one that's coming to mind is like the Partridge Sisters, where
Right.
He was already married to them, but then Emma gets on board, and then she's like, "Well, you can marry them," and he had already married them, but then they do a mock ceremony. Are
Right.
you familiar with
Yeah.
those type
Yeah,
of
I'm familiar
stories?
with those stories and Fanny Alger and all the others. Yeah.
Do those stories have a scent of sin to you, or do you place it somewhere else? And let me just back up by saying, do you know the historian? What's his name? Shoot, I've got it written on one of these cards. There's a current Mormon historian who is he's making the rounds, and he is doing firesides and things, and he straight up says, "Look, Joseph's polygamy to me smells like sin to me." And he's getting like endorsed by the brethren. I wrote about this to the stake presidency when I was stepping away. I was like, do you guys know Patrick Mason is his name? Have you heard that name before or
I've
know anything
heard
about
the
it?
name. I haven't read many of his things. No.
Yeah, so he's like Mormon historian, super active and faithful, but he's like, yeah, Joseph's polygamy to me looks like sin. And he has a couple other interesting things. But anyway, to you, Craig, does it look like sin or does it just look like something else?
Well, I would say I'm not a historian and I don't know enough about it, but from first glance, yeah, it does.
Okay. I definitely respect that. I would say if I had to boil down my wife's reason for stepping away, she's removed her name. It was tied to a lot of these things. So, okay, let's go with another card real quick.
Okay.
This was a joke. Never plug a MIDI out into another MIDI out. Do you know why? This is a musical. That's sodomity. That's stupid. That's stupid. All right, let me keep going.
Oh
All
my
right,
God.
let's see what else we have. All right. Okay. Do you agree that it is a victory for Satan to use the Mormon word? Now, I heard you earlier, Real Bishop Craig. I heard you say Mormons. I'm going to call you on that. Do you agree
I
that
did.
do you agree that it's a victory for Satan when we do that?
Personally, no.
Okay. I respect that. All right. This one was, do you believe that words appeared on a rock? And you had answered that one already.
All
Let
right.
me go through, see what else we have here. What's the difference between a classical musician and a terrorist?
I don't know.
You can negotiate with a terrorist. You've done some classical music, haven't you, Craig?
Oh, I did. If you can accuse me of that, yes.
All right, real
Yeah.
quick. How can you tell when a singer is at your door? They can't
Because
find the
they're,
key. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, something about the key and their knock is all out of rhythm. Or
Yeah, they
something.
can't find the key and they don't know when to come in.
Yeah.
I thought you'd like that one. All right, let me see what else I have. Do you think Abraham wrote the scrolls that we find in the Pearl of Great Price, the Book of Abraham, where it says written by Abraham's own hand? Do you agree with that? Abraham wrote that?
So I'm not sure about those. I'm actually studying that right now and been looking up a lot of stuff about that. Some people say it was literally the scrolls and translated. Other people say the scrolls were a catalyst for ideas
Yeah.
for Joseph to have.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
There's a
I'm studying that.
okay. There is a gospel topic essay also, if you haven't come across that, which is a good
Yeah.
one.
Well,
All right.
and interestingly enough on that, so one of my favorite things in the Book of Abraham used to be one of the facsimiles, the pictures. Um, there's some depictions in some of those pictures that I saw when I visited Egypt and was down in some pyramids, and I saw these Egyptian hieroglyphics on the wall and had some of the same symbols and things on there, and I was like, huh, that's
Okay.
that's interesting.
Well, I respect that. With what I've seen, all of those drawings and all of that is a complete and total shit show. But I don't want to go into that right now. I'll, next card. Do you believe the Book of Mormon is literal, meaning that Abinadi really burned up in the fire? I mean, Craig, I've wept tears over Abinadi before, that he stood there and stood in front of everyone, and I've done that before. I stood up in a Baptist church and challenged everyone,
I
about
heard that
Mormonism.
story.
But do you believe that what's written is literally that those things happened in the flesh?
I think my inclination is yes, that they did. Um, and a lot of them, there's a lot of stories in there of things that happened that are similar to the Bible, and I know um, there's a lot of parallels there. But as you said, in the Bible, there's a lot of things that you're just like, no, that was a story that didn't really happen. And so, I am not well versed enough in the Bible and in the Book of Mormon, and the history and every story and everything to give a complete synopsis on which ones are plausible or probable and which ones are
Yeah.
merely for our own learning or for example.
Okay. I would say that's probably where you and I differ maybe the most, because
Mhm.
I have been convinced beyond a reasonable out to me that the Book of Mormon is basically fan fiction, Bible fan fiction. And I wish the church would just say that, because that's my belief. And they would just say, yes, these people did not exist. No, they are not the principal ancestors of the American Indians. No, they did not exist, but we can learn some things from it. And I would get on board with that. But I've come to the conclusion through various things that I've talked about in the podcast that it's not a book of history, and that I don't think there's any history there, but there are good stories, and I would give them that. And there's some bad stories too, such as cutting someone's head off because you want to get a book that they didn't even use, by the way. Of course, we're referring to two different books, but still, all right. I've just got a few more cards. Can we go through a couple more?
Okay. Yep.
All right. I already asked you this one. Would you recommend to someone that was giving their tithing to their own charity versus the church? I think you answered that. I think you basically said, I need more information. Is that kind of what you said?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I asked you this one already too. Would you give a temple recommend if a couple said that they occasionally had a glass of wine to help their wife relax? And actually, I'd like to talk about that a second, because when I went to your house, when we were like waist deep, or actually head deep in deconstruction, we go down to the Keys, and on our way, there's these stores that were selling legal marijuana, cannabis, or whatever it was. I guess that's pretty common down there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I got reading in the church handbook that the church allows for medical marijuana. Now, let me just say, I agree with that they should, but I don't agree that doctors, who I see as just like every other person, you've wigged out on me again, by the way, Craig, you're blurry. But anyways,
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Doctors who I see as, and they would say, well, you have to have a competent doctor. That's what it says in the handbook. If a competent doctor says you can have pot gummies, then according to the church handbook, that's fine. So I'm sitting here thinking, why can a doctor, so like, let's say I'm a doctor. I can prescribe my wife pot gummies because I'm a competent doctor. And it's like, why can a doctor override God's law of health? Like, that doesn't seem right. It's either in line with it or it's against it. We have a prophet of God on the earth who should speak for God. Is my black and whiteness coming out yet?
I was just going to say, there you go. You're black. You're black and white. Either we do it or we don't.
Isn't that the point of the prophet, real Bishop Craig, is to clear up those kinds of things?
For me, no, but for people that have been in the church a while, and as a lot of the more recent things say is, decide for yourself, pray about it, whatever you feel is going to be right. And that goes with a lot of things. And a lot of people put down the new, like the For Strength of Youth pamphlet, because there's not a whole list of rules and stuff there, which, people who I hear complain about that are the same people that said they didn't like the whole list of rules, So it's like, on one hand, you can't win either way. Say, okay, here's a list of things you can't do. And then, they say, okay, well, here's a general guideline, use your own judgment. And then people still complain either way.
I agree. And I think what you just said there at the end was the key to solving the conundrum, if you will, where you said use your own judgment. because for so many
Hmm.
years we were told that these old men are literally speaking to and for God and telling us what he wants us to know. Therefore, use your own judgment. That's really irrelevant. And so
I, yeah,
if
I think there's a 17.2.2 to everything.
and that's why I love you, real Bishop Craig. But I
Uh,
will just say that the people that end up on the other side, typically, if you had to, put people in boxes and categories, they're the people that believed the brethren when they said they were speaking to and for God. And of
mhm.
course, you know that they have insinuated and hinted that they speak to God and all this stuff.
Right.
So yeah, if we could treat the brethren just like I treated my grandpa Hinckley. You remember my grandpa Craig, right?
Hmm. Yeah, of
I
course.
mean, uh, is it a stretch to say that you're not going to find a better guy who genuinely loves you and is interested in you, no matter who you are? And you probably felt the same way that all of the grandchildren did. However, he was less active almost his whole life. And if I'm being perfectly honest, he did have some race things and such that were probably a product of being raised in the South. However, most of the stuff he said was good advice. And if we could treat the brethren like that, like, hey, that's good advice, then I think it would solve most all the problems you're seeing in the church. Because when President Hinckley stood up and said, no, 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 one earring, no more than that, my wife, or let's see, my sister reached up and took her earring out. I can't remember if my wife had one, but at any rate, she was like, okay, yeah, prophet said it, it's done. We've been taught to put so much emphasis on what the brethren say. So, I just had one last avenue to go. Is that okay,
Okay.
Craig?
Yeah, well, let me comment about that real quick.
Uh,
And you probably heard me say this when we were going to church together. I would say, we'd have a fifth Sunday class or something, and I would say, okay, all you people here, you're here, and guess what? You're going to hear the exact same thing you heard every other week when you came to church. You're not going to hear anything new. You're not going to hear any grand revelation or anything. You're going to hear the same things you hear every week, right?
yeah.
So, I forgot where I was going with that anyway.
Okay.
But
Well, my wife just shamed me. She said, "Yes, I took mine out immediately."
yeah.
Okay. All right. So this was the last kind of place I was wanting to go, and we'll kind of sort of finish with this. Mike says that's the first I heard about the hearing. Really, Mike? Where you been? Okay. I have a theory, Craig. Now, the problem with this theory is that are you very familiar with what's called logical fallacies? Is that something you're
Uh-huh.
familiar with?
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
The problem with my theory is that it's actually one of the logical fallacies, and there's a whole bunch of them, and I'm just kind of learning about them. And it's appeal to consequences. And I'll show what I mean in just a second. And here is a list of how do I do this? Here's a list of logical fallacies. One sec. Yeah, so here's a list of a bunch of, ad hominem and appeal to ignorance and red herring and slippery slope. So there's a bunch of them, and I'm not as smart as you, but I've been kind of going through these and seeing how, especially ad hominems. I mean, I've been getting that like crazy for the past 2 years. People attacking my character, instead of attacking the things that I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Mike says, I'm a never mow. That's respectable. That's respectable, Mike, because I actually want to interview some people who are interested in Mormon topics but have never been. So reach out to me, Mike. Let's talk. So, anyways, going back to, I have a theory, and this is my thoughts, and I realize that you may or may not, agree with this, but my theory, and like I said, it is one of the logical fallacies. However, my theory is this. And to set that up, let me back up and with a quick little story. The Hinckley brothers, our band, we went to do a tryout. It was like country something or another. I don't even remember what it was called.
Right.
And we got selected from a whole holding tank of people. They were like, "You three, come on, come with me." They took us right in there to the judges. They let us sing. We were like, "Heck yeah, this is awesome." And so the judges, this was the tryout right before we would have went to air to like appear on TV as like kind of like American Idol country version.
Right.
Okay. So we get in there with the judges and we try out, and they said, all right, let me ask you a question. You guys are brothers, right? We said, yeah. They said, which one of you is the asshole? And both of my brothers, I was sitting in the middle, both of my brothers pointed straight at me. And they said, "So you're the asshole?" And I'm like, "I guess." And so where I'm going with this is they were making a TV show, Craig. And so it wasn't about, talent necessarily. They were trying to cast certain roles.
They needed a story and some drama.
Right.
Yeah.
They needed a story and some drama. And her final sentence was, "I don't know. You guys, to me, just look too, you come across too squeaky clean." That was what she said. At the time, I didn't even know how to use a fucking cuss word, Craig. I've been learning the past couple of years how to even use colorful language. So I say all that to say, it is my opinion that and I've read a lot and heard a lot about Mormon apologists. So the people that are constantly making up reasons why this isn't a problem or whatever. Okay. It is my opinion that Mormon apologists should say, instead of coming up with the ridiculous reasons why X, Y, and Z isn't a problem, they should say, everything you ex-Mormons talk about, Book of Abraham, historicity, anachronisms, first vision problems, all of these things, you're correct. You're right. They're all super duper problematic, but God wanted the end result. That's the consequences part of the fallacy. In other words, it's my opinion that Mormons should say what all of you ex-Mormons constantly harp about is correct, but God knew it and wanted the squeaky clean outcome that oftentimes you get. Like, to me, that is the best argument for Mormonism, is that, yes, all of the stuff you guys want to talk about is all correct. Yes, there's problems here. Yes, polygamy is a shit show. Yes, the Book of Mormon's got tons of problems. Yes, 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 yes. Yes on all of that, but God knew it, and he wanted the people to be squeaky clean like you were. That's my most like loving, like friendly take on Mormonism. Now, I don't agree with that, but it is my opinion that that would be their best argument, because all of the arguments they put out seem so frail and weak to me. Do you have any thoughts on that? And do you kind of see where I'm coming from and what I'm trying to get at? That God wanted the end result. He wanted the people to be like, think of any of the good Mormons. I see you as a good
Mm-hmm.
Mormon. I see Luke Allen as a good Mormon. I see, I could name 100 people, but then I can also name a whole bunch of people who are judgmental and who are, and who are the opposite of that. But
Right.
take the good ones and say that's what God wanted and that's why he let all this stuff happen. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I mean, I've heard a lot of the explanations or things that people say are explanations for a lot of things, and I
Your
would
internet's out, by the
say,
way.
oh,
Make your internet come back. Oh, there you are.
there, I did.
Go.
I said a little prayer. So I would say that I'm just reading this comment here.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, I mean, so if you believe that God has a plan, then of course we would say, well, God knew that there was going to be all these problems, all these things. People would find out about this. There would be all these things in the history of the church. But God already knew that, and He knew that people were going to have a problem with it. He knew that people were going to know all about it and not have a real problem with it. He knew that people were going to have a problem with it and leave the church because of it. So, um, I guess I don't know exactly what you're saying about the squeaky clean part.
Well, I'm saying that if you think about the best Mormons, they have what this judge recognized in us brothers. We were squeaky clean. We didn't
Mm-hmm.
cuss. We didn't drink. We attended church every week. Like she recognized that in us.
Right.
And so that's what I'm getting at. Like the best things of Mormonism, like there's nothing wrong with that. Now there are problems when you start talking about being judgmental. And let me just say, I recognized at a gas station, like 2 weeks after I like made it known, like I don't believe anymore. I saw a person walking up and buying, beer and cigarettes and had tattoos all over. And I found a different love in my heart for them than what I had as a member. And maybe I am telling on myself that I was a terrible person, perhaps. But I looked at them in a different light. And I got chill bump from even talking about it because I was like, this person is not bad. Okay, who cares? They want to have a
Right.
little drink. I've got a little bit of drink right here. I don't give a shit. It doesn't make me a bad person. Yet I will be told by many people that makes me a terrible person. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, this guy, I have love for this person. Fix your internet. Bishop Craig.
I don't know.
Anyways, I think I've made a point. That's what I'm getting at there with that. I'm just trying to say that's the best argument I can come up with. That people need to be, in other words, the reasons that there you are. Can you tell when it comes in?
Yeah.
Okay. Dang Mormons need to give you better internet out there. I think I've made my point.
I see what you're saying, and I think there is a tendency of um, wanting to blame the church and our upbringing for our judgment of people like that. Like you mentioned, like, oh, we see somebody, he's got tattoos. Oh, they're drinking, they're smoking. They're bad people. That person needs Jesus. So I think there's a tendency to to want to blame it on something. And I mean, the church and the culture of the church is an easy target for a lot of people, because they're like, well, the church teaches that you shouldn't drink, you shouldn't smoke, you shouldn't do drugs. So people that do those things aren't following the prophet, aren't following the commandments, right? So I mean, and I think Pete, and this goes back again to a lot of people that don't experience other cultures or other places, or people that just grow up in Happy Valley, Utah, and that's all they know, right? So down here in South Florida, it's a lot of Hispanic people, a lot of Black people. I mean, in my kids' school, it's a 49% Hispanic, 49% Black, and 2% white.
Yeah.
And those 2% are my three kids, you know? So I think, you know, with my family, at least, them experiencing other things and being around more of those things that the Mormons consider, you know, people that are bad, or, you know, unclean, that that my children and my family have been around a, a lot of people that aren't like them, you know, and they didn't grow up with a whole bunch of people in their church, in the high school with their church, in which I grew up in a high school. Pretty much everybody in my high school was a member of the church. Everybody that lived in my neighborhood was a member of the church. And it wasn't until I got out of that from Utah that, you know, I started understanding more what the rest of the real world is like, you know, and that there's other things, you know, and there's other religions, there's other people, there's other things, you know, but we tend to put so much emphasis on the culture of the church that becomes like what we hold on to, and anything that doesn't fit that box, we're like, oh, that's, you know, they're not a good person.
Yeah. Let me respond to this. Some guy out there, he says, Bishop, if you're right, God did it all on purpose, and it is all still true, then my brother, we are screwed. I just want to say, that's not my perspective. I'm trying to say that is the best, in my opinion, that's the best argument the believers have. Does that make sense? It's not my perspective. But in other words, what I'm trying to say is there's so much proof. I've been doing it for 2 years of taking every issue from the whatchamacallit plates, whatever they're called. I've been looking at every issue. There's so much proof on one side that the apologist needs to quit trying to explain it away and just say, yeah, what the ex-Mormons want to talk about is all right. It's all correct.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to say. I wasn't trying to, but the Mormons need to say, but God knew it, and this is what he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I was trying to get out.
Sure.
However,
So,
let me just put an end to all this and say, Bishop Craig, my friend, I love you, brother. I really do.
likewise.
When no one else was there to even acknowledge the fact that, oh, you have a podcast. Oh, your podcast has, 1,500 subs. That's not a drop in the buck. And, that's significant. There's
Mm-hmm.
people out the Kinderhook. Thank you, Mike. I was drawing a blank. It's hard sometimes when you're live. The whole Kinderhook stuff is amazing. But anyway, point is, I have had, in some respects, zero support for the things that I care about, with an exception of you. And you have put our relationship above any other. And I hope I haven't been dismissive or, argumentative at all for you. I've tried to be true to myself and true to my channel, but still put our relationship above everything else. So I want to, your dang Mormons won't give you good internet. So what I want you to do is go home to your lovely family, your lovely wife, who is just one of the best people I know. Tell them that we love you guys. And I don't care if you're Mormon, Muslim, Seventh-day Adventist, or atheist. I will always put our relationship above anything else. And that's something I tried to get across in that speech that I posted from my daughter's wedding, which you flew all the way here to support us. And so I just want to say, I want to join my voice to my brother-in-law who said, Craig is the best example of what Mormonism should be. And unfortunately for Mormonism, the worst things kind of attached to me. And my stake president recognized it. And when I shedded those things, he said, dude, you're a better person now. So I don't know why my family, my mom and my dad won't say, hey, forget Mormonism. I agree with your stake president. You're a better person now. I am. Mm-hmm. I'm more loving, understanding. I'm not, even politically, I'm somewhere in the middle where before I was pushed extreme in one direction. So I feel like across the board, stepping away from Mormonism has made me a more understanding and loving person, even though I still get fucking raked across the coals for speaking out. I don't care. It is me and I'm authentic. And I want to thank you for loving the authentic me. Fix your internet and then you can have the last word and I'll let you go, brother.
Well, thank you. Well, so I watched a little of your episode. When I texted you last week, you had your episode about who should I blame? Is it this, and somebody told me that you tried to blame me for something. But if I can share my screen for a second.
Of course. Let's see what you got.
Let me see. Maybe I can't figure out how to do this. I figured out how to transport myself into your room, but
just hit present, and then you have to open the tab in order to share the tab. It has to be opened on your computer.
Yeah, it's okay.
And then it'll pop up on my screen for me to share it. Everybody's saying great chat tonight. Let's sustain Craig. Yes, we all sustain the brethren for Craig. So everybody's really appreciated you tonight.
I can't do this. Well, here, let me text you this, and then you can put it up here.
All right, let's see what you got. You never know with Craig. He's Mr. Google. He's like, you know what? I'm not as smart as people think I am. I'm just good at Google. You remember telling me that, Craig?
Yep. Oh, well, see, I can't figure it out. Okay, here it is. All right. Here you go. I just texted this to you.
Okay.
I was waiting for you to pull this one up during your previous stream. Of something to blame it on.
You want me to blame it on the rain?
I was waiting for that. You totally missed that one. Totally.
Blame it on the stars that shine at night.
Yeah.
Whatever you do, don't put the blame on you. Blame it on the rain.
There you go.
I love it.
Well, I
All
have
right,
one
man.
more question for you. I can't believe we've been on here for almost 2 hours. Oh my
That's
gosh.
yeah. What else you got? And
Are
we'll
there still people watching or what?
we got 47 people on here.
Oh my
Every
gosh. Don't you guys have anything better to do on a Monday night? Oh
My
my
brother-in-law said, "Hey,
gosh.
there's that musical number he was waiting for."
Well, my last question for you is, would you come back to church if we could play a musical number in sacrament?
I will come to your church. I don't think my church would appreciate me walking through the doors. I may try it someday just for kicks and giggles. I will come to your church.
Well,
I will
come
do
on
a musical
down.
number. Um, uh, music. Do you remember the day that I sat in the bishop's office and I played for you guys a song and I sat there and bawled my eyes out? Do you remember that day?
Um, no.
Okay, I do. I played for you. It's I don't remember his name, but he does all the different vocal parts of this song. He sings them all. It's a cappella. And I was like, guys, I want to. It was like my spiritual thought for the meeting. I played
Hmm.
it for you, and I just sat there and bawled my eyes out. And there's never been anything, I don't care what it was, that affects me more than music. And you and I have had so many of those times. And you know, in Mormonism, I think the biggest flaw of Mormonism is the spirit testifies of truth thing. I think that's a huge flaw. And we don't have to talk about that right now, but the spirit or what you feel when you're doing the music, I wouldn't call it the spirit anymore, but whatever it is of just connecting with each other and connecting with the
Hmm.
audience through music is probably the most powerful thing that I know of. And so you and I at church, in gigs, in bars down in uh, Cumberland Gap,
Yep.
we've been able to do that. And I just want to say a huge thank you for being for manifesting uh, what you are, which is a true lover of people and someone that is willing to put friendships above all else. And for that, I can't thank you enough. You were there when I needed someone. And some of the people that should have been there for me were not. And you were. And I love you for that.
Well, I always will be. So,
All right. Well, I'm going to let you go, Real Bishop, because you need to get back to
okay.
your family.
All right. Family home evening's over for the night.
All right. Take care, brother.
Are we going to have a closing prayer or anything?
No, I don't
All
do that
right.
anymore.
We'll do our own. All right.
Take care.
See ya.
All right. And I want to just take a second to thank you guys. My my channel has grown a lot. I occasionally ask myself, am I going to keep doing this? And yeah, I really need it. I really do. I love you guys. I love seeing your comments. I feel the support that you give me. We're in this together. There are good people in this world. I believe most people are good, even in Mormonism and any religion, and in no religion. And that's the way I see so many people, and that's the reason why I love to do this and meet you, talk to you, and share our experiences because they truly do matter. So, with all that, I will say thank you for joining me. Most people are good. Hey, I haven't seen that name before. Play Nice Channel. I love that. I love to see new people up in here. I love to see my brother-in-law and sister in here. One of these days, you'll get to hear their story. Todd had a suggestion for a really good. I'll go ahead and tell it. He says, "Hey, What would you think about doing an episode where we show all of the texts and correspondences we had with you when you were trying to save us? And I said, yes, that would be awesome. So these people are just like Craig. You know, even though I treated them like shit when they left, I said things like with Todd, my brother-in-law, there there's no more upstanding person than him and Craig. However, because he stepped away from the promises and the temple and the priesthood and things, I was like, he's not a man of his word. That's the kind of bullshit I would say on Todd. Yeah, he's not a man of his word because he stepped away. Well, now I've learned that. I'm so sorry, Lindsay. I still have PTSD. She's laughing, but she's kind of not. And I was kind of I was the strongest voice of opposition for them. Having said that, they have told me that you were actually the most reasonable voice. Like, in other words, if you truly believe Mormonism, then you are acting exactly as you should act. And I did. I truly believed it. I did not want to sin and did not want it. I wanted it to be true. And she says, you're a better person now. And I believe that I am. And I mentioned even fucking politics earlier. I don't want to go into it right now, but I was pushed in one direction. Okay. And let me just say for the record that as I laid down erroneous lies, I found an even place. Now, I'll admit, I may not be exactly where some people would like me to be, but I am in a lot better middle ground than I was. Across the board, yeah, I tried to save my brother and sister with what I thought was right, but in actuality, they saved me. And that's what's happened. And so I'm ranting. We've been on here for 2 hours. I love you guys. Have a great night. And thanks for joining me. Good night.